Hey, welcome to Trenton Talks on uh, Trenton TV radio broadcast this afternoon on January 11th, 2022. On behalf of Trenton Board of Education, I welcome you to our TV radio broadcast on Trenton Talks. I want to thank our sponsors, WIMG 1300 AM and WPHY Verizon Channel 28. My name is Gerald Truart. I'm your host for this evening. I serve as a board member for the Trenton Board of Education. I chair the Family and Community Engagement and School Support Committee. I serve along with board committee members, Board President Addie Daniels Lane, and board committee members Denise Johnson, Yolanda Madero Lopez, and I also serve as chair of the Board Policy Committee with Teron Tice, Denise Johnson, and as well as Yolanda Madero Lopez. I'm also a member of the Human Resources Committee, who's chaired by Yolanda Madero Lopez, and also the Facilities, Buildings and Grounds Schools chair by Jeannie Weekland. The operations chair of Finance and Operations Committee is Jean Bowie. And so we want to thank also our Mr. James Earl, our superintendent of schools, for his leadership, for his support, and for his commitment to our school community. I want to introduce to some and others, Wilfredo Ortiz, our Assistant Superintendent of School Support. I want to thank our co-host, Ms. Denise Crease, our Parent Coordinator and Homeless Liaison for Trenton Public Schools. I want to thank all of our attendees who are on via Facebook Live, Zooming in on Facebook Live, also on Zoom webinar, and on our Trenton Public Schools Facebook Live page. Again, thank you to our sponsors, WIMG 1300 AM and WPHY Verizon Channel 28. Our TV broadcast is on Trenton Talks. It's broadcast on radio on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. on WIMG 1300am.com or 13am.com, as well as our TV channel, Verizon Channel 28, on Thursdays at 11 p.m. Also, you can find us on our YouTube channel, Trenton TV, and of course on our Facebook page live every Tuesday at 4 p.m. on Trenton Public Schools. We have an exciting evening planned for you this evening, two segments this evening. In our first segment, we have representatives from the leadership of Ielts, Inc., founded in 1981. Ielts is a community development and environmental organization based right here in the capital city of Trenton, New Jersey, with the mission to foster self-reliant families and healthy and sustainable communities. Ielts designs and develops effective services that support their mission, that they share what they learn with others who can make a difference. Our two guests tonight are Mr. John Hart, Chief Operating Officer, and Dr. Michael Norquist, Managing Director of Community Services. John Hart, as Chief Operating Officer, took on a role as Chief Operating Officer in 2014. Mr. Hart served in a variety of positions in New Jersey state government and associated services, including Chief of Staff for New Jersey Department of Education, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Department of Human Services, and Chief Operating Officer for Sandy Recovery Program. Mr. Hart has also worked in nonprofit and academic settings, including Director of Operations for Resources for Children and Special Needs, a nonprofit agency in New York City, an executive for Virtual Health Systems, and an Associate Director of the Senator Walter Rand Policy Institute at Rutgers University. Mr. Hart has been an active member in the community and has been a member of several community boards, including Teen Sharp, a youth mentoring program, the New Jersey State Advisory Committee for the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, the Boys and Girls Club of Camden County, the Walt Whitman Arts Center, New Jersey Infant Mortality Committee, Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and New Jersey Safe Neighborhoods and Gang Prevention Task Force. Amen. Wow. Welcome, John Hart. We're going to give it over to our co-host, Denise Crease, who's going to introduce this evening, Dr. Michael Norquist.
Yes, thank you so much for that segue. So we also have with us Dr. Michael Norquist, Managing Director of Community Services. As Managing Director of Community Services, Michael oversees pacemaking and redevelopment efforts at Ielts, including Ielts Youth Institute, urban agriculture, clean and green, community planning, Ielts Financial Opportunity Services, and real estate. Michael works with his colleagues and community members to support community-focused development and improvement of Trenton's neighborhood and residents. Prior to coming to Ielts, Michael was the executive director of the College of New Jersey Center for Community and Engaged Learning and Research, where he led TCNJ's community and civic engagement activities in the region, and taught at TCNJ as a political science in the political science department. Before going to TCNJ, Michael was an assistant professor in the Department of History and Political Science at Albertus Magnus College in New Haven, Connecticut. Welcome and thank you. And we are so excited to begin this conversation. So, Mr. Hart, Dr. Michael, talk to us a little bit about the work that you're currently doing in Trenton, and more specifically in regards to the Re-Engagement Center.
Yeah, gladly. First, thanks to all of you for having us on today. This is a great opportunity to share some of the work that we're doing, and also just to build on the relationships that you all at the Board of Ed and Trenton Public Schools are working to foster and maintain and develop and grow with the various organizations around the city, including Ielts. So it's exciting to be here as a partner and working with you on this platform. So let me talk a little bit about Re-Engagement Center and why we are pursuing this, and why we think it's an essential component to some of the work that we're doing. As mentioned, Ielts' role and mission is to foster self-reliant families and nurture sustainable and healthy communities throughout Trenton and the region. And we really know that education is one of the key components to be able to do this. What we also know is that of Trenton's population of between 90 and 100,000 people, according to the census, about 29% of Trenton residents do not have a high school diploma. And this is in comparison to about only 10% of the state's population that does not have a high school diploma, and about 11% of the county. So we know that there's a great need here. And I know I'm speaking to the choir and part of the choir here when I say that, but I think it's important to establish just the real need there. So one of the things that we have been working on in community services is this idea of a re-engagement center. And before I dive into the re-engagement center, I do want to talk a little bit about Ielts community services and some of the broader things that we're bringing both to educational services and youth services, and also the platform as a whole. So community services encompasses a wide variety of services and programs that Ielts runs and oversees, including, as you mentioned, Ielts Youth Institute, which is our almost 30-year-old youth build program that provides high school equivalency testing and programming, vocational support, and life skills workshops and training. So this has been one of the bedrock institutions at Ielts for the past 29, 30 years. We also have a broad youth services division that provides some social and cultural programming after school and during the day to really build out and provide opportunities for youth to have something to do and play with their colleagues and learn things, and get some really great opportunities to have things to do after school. So one of the things that we have seen, though, is that there's some students that we haven't been able to reach and engage. And so this is where the Re-Engagement Center comes in for us, because we recognize that youth leave school for lots of different reasons, and we're not here to judge that, not even here necessarily not here to make any judgments about that, but we know that they leave for lots of different reasons. We also know it's really hard to get them back in and to get them re-engaged. So one of the models that has emerged over the past 15, 20 years across the country is these re-engagement centers. And re-engagement centers are built around three main ideas: outreach, assessment, and referral. So outreach, fairly obvious, working with the school district and others to figure out where are the youth that have left, where are the students who have disengaged and have left the schools, and how do we get them re-engaged? So doing that outreach, contacting families, contacting friends, working with other agencies and organizations to really get a sense of where are these youth and what are their needs, and how can we support them? So that leads into the assessment piece, working with a youth on an individual basis to figure out, all right, where are you at? What got you to leave school, and how do we get you back in? What are you looking to do? Do you want to go back into traditional schooling? Do you want to find an alternative pathway? Do you just want to get this done as quickly as possible? Which I get that. So working with youth on an individual basis to figure out what their goals are, where they want to go, how to get there. And then referrals. matching them up with services to meet their needs. So the priority here is to get them back into, a degree program so that they can get their high school diploma or the equivalency. But we also know there's lots of obstacles that youth face that they need to address before they're ready to get back in. So the goal of the role of the re-engagement center there is to do that assessment, do that work with an individual youth, and to match them up to various social service agencies and providers so that they can have these needs addressed, whether that's mental health services, whether that's housing services, whether that's physical health services. We want to make sure that we're able to identify the needs of each individual youth and then do that handholding in some sense to get them to the services that they need so they can get back into school and achieve their diploma. So that's I feel like that's a lot to dump out there, but that's really the motivation here about why we're doing this and what we think and what we've seen work in other communities both across the state and the country about re-engagement centers and how they work, why they work, and what we want to bring here. So, John, I don't know if you want to give a little context to some of the work that you've done.
I have a quick question before you jump into the next segue. What's like the age range for this program? Like what's the up to 21, like 16 to 21, or is it up to 18?
So we look up at 16 to 24. So a lot of the programs that can provide high school equivalency programming can go up to 24. And so we're looking to work with, it's a very broad definition of youth, but we're looking to work with anybody who doesn't have a high school diploma and is looking to get one. And in some cases, even if they're over 24, we can work with other providers, Mercer County Community College, other agencies, to get them on track to get their high school equivalency.
So Michael, let's say a 13-year-old drops out and is not engaged, and you are a parent of that 13 or 14-year-old. What would the re-engagement center, once it's established, would it be, could it be utilized by that parent and that 14-year-old? Yeah,
of course. I mean, so yes, the funding that we have for this is really flexible, which is great. So we're looking at that 16 to 24 as a sort of age range, knowing what programs are out there. But we are absolutely willing to work with any youth who has left schools and then partner with the public schools and your offices to figure out how do we get them back in and how do we get them back on track. So we're going to be, it's going to be really flexible. And as John hinted at, this doesn't exist yet. We're getting it off the ground, we're building it. And so we're really looking forward to establishing this and really in the next month or two to get this running so that it's operational by the end of really in the next 2 months.
It's a thing that its time has come, and honestly, its time was years ago. We're not the only. We would not certainly not be the first in New Jersey to have a re-engagement center. Our expectation is that we will have the most productive and effective and best re-engagement center. But it's also not something that can be run just out of aisles. So we're sitting here and we're talking about a re-engagement center. That's because we have been pushing for something like this and looking for funding and interacting and working with the school district and other entities to try to get this established for a number of years now. And we're really at the precipice of being able to put this together and move forward with this. But what we will be doing is just setting up the structure for it. In order for a re-engagement center to be effective in other cities, and certainly here in Trenton, it's going to take, what do you say? It takes a village, right? It's going to take a number of different agencies working together, a number of different stakeholders. It is going to take our citizens, it's going to take the school district to see this, and they will see it as a viable option and a navigating tool to allow for our young people and the parents of young people to have a place to go to say, okay, what can I do, right? I can go on the internet, I guess, but is there one place that can help me navigate and help my child, my student, my young person navigate back into a positive situation? That positive situation we're hoping is back in the public schools. But as Michael suggested, that's not necessarily the best, especially starting off, maybe the best scenario. And so there's a lot of other opportunities, there's a lot of other resources, and then where there's not resources, this process, having a re-engagement center, allows for us to identify the gaps in service, what's not there, right? And so in part, it's certainly to help connect folks to existing resources and help young people get connected back, be re-engaged into the either social services or re-engaged back into school. But it's also will help us identify the gaps that we have and what's missing so that we can start to fill those as well.
Wow, this sounds like such a great program that's going to get jump started within the month or two. When you talk about outreach, can we get a little more specific on those layers and levels and what that would look like for a family? I know that it hasn't started yet. Like, how would a family know to go to the re-engagement center? Let me stop before I keep asking more questions.
So Michael, I'll start that and you can jump off, because I think that it's also important to know and to realize there's a lot of existing services for parents and young people that exist now. And so while I did talk about connections with services and talk about the gaps, the re-engagement center also allows for there to be a funneling, right, of resources that may potentially already exist, probably already exist, and it's almost like a one-stop shop, right? So working with the county WIBs, working with city officials, working with the public schools, there's one place that is designed to be a place for information for services that currently exist and services that are going to be developed, right? And so, you know, to put it in context a bit to your question, which is a really good question, it's also important to remember that there are existing services now. Hundreds and hundreds of young people in Trenton are getting those recreation services, navigation services every single day, but there's so many more that still need it. And this allows for there to be a place that where those things can be focused. And if it's not, then the people on the call here will let us know and say, you're supposed to be doing this thing, and be able to, there's also one place to complain about. And sometimes that's a good thing too. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, that's great. And I think that outreach here is meant to be as comprehensive as possible. I mean, we would anticipate working with you and getting some information about, you know, who's left, how do we contact them, can we get that information? So we'd have to talk a little bit more about that down the road. But really, once the coordinator here has that contact information, the idea would be that they would be calling their parents, calling them, calling if they know their friends, hopefully having relationships and connections where they know folks who know folks who know folks who can get at some of the youth who have dropped out, and really just working on you know, on getting them back in, and that takes lots of different forms. Some of it involves patience, because we always know that, you know, some folks just aren't ready. They're not ready to come back for whatever reason, or they're not ready or interested to come back. So a sort of patience and persistence without being overly aggressive, but reaching out to not just the individual, but also the folks who surround them too, and want to see them succeed as well. That can involve going to homes in some cases. That can involve finding them on social media. So I think that we're open, and the goal is really just to make that initial contact, to make sure that these folks know that they have someone who's thinking about them, that is available to them, and that can support them through getting back in and plotting a path forward.
So will there be any programming happening at the engagement center? Like, will there be support groups or parent groups? Or is this just meant for like a coordinator to help navigate, to develop the individualized plans? Like, is that like in a phase 2 of this center?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was going to start by saying 5-6 years ago, when Ielts and myself sort of first thought about this and saw what other cities were doing throughout the state and nation around this, we were thinking relatively small. We just needed a virtual place potentially, or a place where people can go and sort of conceptually do it. And so this idea of going from okay to good to better to best, and over time, being able to provide the services, the true services necessary and needed, is part of that Michael, you mentioned patience. It's not necessarily patience with the service delivery. We're going to have to leverage more and more funds, state funds, foundation dollars, corporation grant funds in order to sustain this and keep this up and grow this. So Michael, you want to talk about it being a place versus just a concept a little bit?
Sure. I mean, so to Denise, to your question too, like, yes, we envision seeing how this goes and building on it, because I know that the school provides a lot of those opportunities and services too. So we'd want to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts, but that we're providing linkages to existing efforts and making sure that we're taking advantage of stuff that is already out there. Because the last thing we want to do is do something that someone else is already doing, because it's just not worth it. And so I think that, yeah, we hope to really build it out and have it be potentially a real hub of activity, depending on the interest and depending on the demand that we see. We do envision it as being a place that someone, if someone will have a staff member here, and if someone is, coming by and just says, hey, I hear there's a re-engagement center and I want to go back to school, what can you tell me? Someone will be there to be able to take that call and take that visit and let them in and be like, all right, let's talk, and go from there. So I think that initially, to your question, yeah, I think initially we will start with this coordinator role, but we also know that, and we've got tons of connections to other organizations and agencies, that if the opportunity arises where it makes sense to start hosting programming and support groups, like you were saying, and sort of peer groups, then yeah, there's nothing stopping us. It's just a matter of seeing where and how that fits in and how it meets the broader goals of making sure that folks can get back into school.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this is definitely needed, because I do come across unaccompanied youth that are displaced, that are homeless, and they are looking to, get their diploma. And, our option right now, as Mr. Ortiz could probably broaden, my response to this, is that they can go to Daylight Twilight. It's a different schedule. They build their credits a little bit different than the main high school. There is an evening program for adults, but sometimes that doesn't address some of their needs, because they haven't, they're trying to survive. So that outreach piece and component is really important and integral in connecting with services, because if they don't have their basic needs, then they're not going to be able to re-engage. So just the concept, and it's going to happen. It sounds great. So thank you for sharing that with everyone.
And Mr. Ortiz, from a district standpoint and board standpoint with Ielts, what are the next steps? I know you've had some conversations, I'm sure, with Dr. Norquist and John Hart here. What are the next steps to link the district with Ielts and the re-engagement center around dropout prevention?
So we've already had some conversations. Our assistant superintendent of secondary schools, Hope Grant, has been in contact with the organization, with Dr. Norquist and Mr. Hart. But the most important component right now, which struck me immediately, was 29% of our families do not have high school diplomas. So that's a large number. And so how do we support a re-engagement center? The way we do it is to work collaboratively. We have to first make sure that we can't just give out certain information, parent information and student information, but we can come up with a system, which we're working on right now with Kelly Creek and our community-based partners that are with the FCC, where we are actually coming up with a memorandum of understanding agreement, so that we can actually give certain information to our community partners, so that we're not duplicating efforts. Because right now, the re-engagement center will be able to support our families. So if we can give them the information of the students who have dropped out, okay? So this is how we can do outreach. So we can provide data that exists, that we have in Power School, that the organization can get, so that we can start bringing these students in into the re-engagement center. So for me, the re-engagement center then is like a place, right? It's some place that they can go to. It has to be a physical location. The other thing is that we might look at satellite offices, so that part of the re-engagement center could be at central office, where there's an office for re-engaging youth, right? That can be, so there's different ways that we can collaborate with the re-engagement center, and we're excited about it. We've already started looking at it. We also can tie into our evening school program, our daylight twilight, because as you know, we do have a program where we graduated young men and women, as you know, 40-year-old who finally got their diploma, and they actually graduated and they walked and they marched. They done all that. So we're putting the daylight program back into place. So that's another way that we can support the re-engagement center.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. The other area I know over at the high school with our school-based youth services, how does school-based youth services potentially play into supporting the dropout prevention?
Well, we do have SBY, the student-based youth services with Melda Grant, and they exist. These counselors exist, social workers. They exist in all of our high schools. We are now expanding to include the middle schools. We're in the process right now of interviewing for school-based social workers and interventionists and behaviorists to support the middle school and the high school students. So everything is a connection. They need to know about the re-engagement center. The re-engagement center, I believe they're looking for a coordinator who will be a direct contact with our school counselors as well, not only with school-based youth services, but we have guidance counselors in every school. So it's also making sure that the guidance counselor at the high schools, the school-based youth services workers, our child study team members, because we have psychologists and we have child study team members, that this is all interwoven for the need of students. So the more that we're linked together, students can't fall, right? So right now, students are falling through the cracks. If we all wrap our arms around this, from school counseling to youth-based services to all of this, then the chances of students falling through the cracks are limited. They're going to fall, but they're limited. Somehow there's a hand to support these kids.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. Some last words? We're going to go into our second half of our radio broadcast, and I want to give some final words to Mr. John Hart and Dr. Michael Norquist. I'll start with you, John, and we'll go over to Michael.
I couldn't agree with Mr. Ortiz more. I talked about I said, okay, good, better, best. When the re-engagement center is working best, it's being a part of the prevention of the dropouts in the first place, right? And that's ultimately our goal as a re-engagement center, is to put ourselves out of business, that it's not necessary and not needed, right? There's a lot of school districts. I'm former chief of staff, Department of Education. I tell you, there's a lot of school districts in New Jersey that don't have a re-engagement center. And our ultimate goal is to be in a city and to make sure that we're doing the things necessary, that the concept of re-engagement center is not necessary and needed, right? So that we avoid this dropout to prison pipeline that so many of our urban areas are, that it's occurring. And it's, as we all know, it's not only the education, right? It's the other aspects associated with our environment and our everyday lives. And so creating these types of initiatives, this type of work, having people like Stacey Heading, who was one of the key people at Ielts, who makes things happen and makes this kind of work happen. In order for us to we need to work together with the school district. We need to work together with other stakeholders, with the city and other entities, in order to make this type of thing like the re-engagement center occur, and then eventually make it not necessary.
I think, yes, yes to everything John just said. And I think my last thought would largely be that, I mean, re-engagement centers are part of the puzzle. And I think that for me, they are also part of a broader strategy to reduce violence, to increase economic development opportunities and employability opportunities, and really to contribute to the broader development and growth of the city. So I'm really looking forward to this. I hope you all stay tuned. We'll have more information about it as it gets off the ground, and looking forward to working with those of you on the call to make that happen.
Gerald, you're muted.
Denise Priest, and then Mr. Ortiz, final comments regarding Ielts and the re-engagement center. Denise?
I'm looking forward to the re-engagement center because it's needed. There are a lot of youth that want to get educated, but just may not necessarily know what steps to take to get re-engaged. And, we're just going to strengthen the capacity for us to work and get more students educated. And I can't wait. Count me in, and I will support as much as possible.
And just for me, just a point of clarification. I know we used an example of Mr. Hart mentioned, if you got a 13-year-old that's dropped out and blah, blah, blah. There are no 13-year-olds that drop out. You cannot drop out at 13. So parents, if you have a 13-year-old, they need to be in school, right, Mr. Hart? So that was just an example, right? But let's make sure that sometimes our parents keep the kids home for one reason or another. It's the responsibility of the community to report that, to let us know, because if we do, all kids need to be in school, and they cannot drop out until like maybe 17, really, 16 with a parent's signature. But please, no 13 years old, you gotta be in school.
I was just testing you, Mr. Ortiz. You've passed. Well done.
Thank you.
I failed.
Thanks for coming.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. John Hart, Ielts Director of Operations, Chief Operating Officer, and Michael Norquist as well, being on board our Community Services Director. We appreciate you both and having a conversation around the reentry center. We appreciate all that work that you put in so far. And I know from a board re-engagement center, I know from a board perspective, we're behind anything that impacts students and families, so they can graduate with the mission to graduate in 4 years, with 12 years in high school, and then go on to higher education, 4 years in college or 2 years for a community engagement associate's degree. So we're looking to do everything that we can to support the re-engagement center, so none of our students want to drop out. Now, I like what you said, Mr. Hart. Put yourself out of business so that we don't have the situations where we have students that are dropping out and that prisoner pipeline can be crushed where it needs to be crushed. So we appreciate all that you're doing over at Ielts. So thank you so much, both you, John, and also you, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Denise, we have some announcements for our listeners and for our viewers this evening.
Yes, I'm really excited. We are launching our new parent leadership series, and this time around, we're gonna do it virtual. We're partnering with Parents Anonymous to strengthen parent voices throughout our community here in Trenton. So we're going to talk about effective communication, strengthening leadership skills. We're going to talk about the importance of being engaged between school and home, and so much more. And what's so nice about this is parents that sign up and complete the workshop and other evaluation tools, they'll receive $50 per workshop that they attend. If they complete the series, they'll receive $100. And then they will be invited to attend a statewide Parent Anonymous conference for parent empowerment. So I'm really, really excited for it. It begins January 25th. Virtually on Tuesdays. We're looking at morning sessions. So we just kind of wanted to put our feelers out to see if this go around, we could do it in the morning because the last series we did it in the evening. And guess what? We already have 65 parents that have signed up to participate. So I definitely want to bring on Parents Anonymous next week so we can talk a little bit more about what's going to happen in these workshops. And the ultimate goal is for these parents to then create their own parent support groups within their schools. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. And so that is, I will share the flyer on Facebook. I've already shared it with the communications officer. So she's going to do multiple communication blasts. And that's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Denise. My brother, Stacy D. Heading, how are you this evening?
I'm fine, brother. I'm fine.
Good. Coming on board, talk about C-Mel mentoring program with Stacy Heading. I'm going to introduce the program to you guys, at least some things that I know about it, the history of C-Mel mentoring program. In October 20, 2008, E. Jenkins Ministries introduced the Servants Endeavoring to Empower and Develop Male Mentoring Program to the community through the Community Youth Fair. Since then, the C-Mel Mentoring Program has had positive effort in the city of Trenton. Mission is to prepare youth for greatness as they make changes in their environment through self-awareness, social etiquette, and individuality. The mission is to cultivate the mindset of the youth to establish them as role models in their community through change. Purpose is to guide, counsel, and fellowship with the younger population, train them the way that the world and life, giving them tools to transition into responsible and successful young men of integrity. Through our objectives, the C-Mel Mentoring Program has succeeded in changing the mindset of our youth and actively participating in community programs. Some of the objectives of the C-Mel Mentoring Program: to encourage youth men to excel and succeed, to encourage and develop spiritual growth, to develop confidence, leadership, and cooperation, to expose young men to positive environments and activities, to encourage our youth to reach for higher education endeavors. And on the call, on the broadcast this evening, we have Stacy D. Heading, who is the director of the C-Mel Mentoring Program. And so welcome to you tonight. The Servants Endeavoring to Empower and Develop.
Well, that was a great wrap up, man. Like I was telling, where did he get that from? I guess we got that online. It was great because it really did started like bringing back memories of how it first started and how it first came about over like 13 years ago, man. And we followed the plan in that. And so in just listening to that, I'm like, wow. I think, but one of the main things that we've learned later on was important is to get the parents involved. I think that's what through the years made the program successful, because in our orientation, most of the time it's the mothers, 80% of the time. I mean, I rarely had the fathers to bring them in. So it's always parent mothers, and we'll do an orientation in the beginning and we talk to them. And a lot of times, true Hart, we do it at the church, right? And, we really let them know, like, this is a spiritual balance, thing right here, because I truly believe that you need something spiritually also to go with what is going on in the community and what's going on within themselves, right? And so when we have them and when we have the parents, and when they hear the sincerity of us telling them, listen, we've been doing this for years. On this thing called the Gridiron Gang, when I do mental toughness over at Ielts, when we bring in like new students, I show the clip and The Rock says, you did it your way and they got you where you was at. Now let's try it our way. And so that's what it's all about. Like, just try it our way. Just try us, right? And everybody partake in this, including parents, including the young men, and let's see where we go from there. And most of the time it's successful.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about some of the community initiatives started under C's Male Mentoring Program. There's so many things
Yeah,
that you've done over the
Yeah.
last 13 years.
yeah,
The Harlem, you went up to Harlem, right?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you've
We
been
went,
to
listen,
college fairs to Morehouse and Howard University with students.
all of that, man.
I
When I
mean-
do, sometimes I sit back and I think about some of the things that we've done, and I'm like, and I just stepped out, on the promise of God. Like, I mean, no one has showed me this. So I'm gonna tell you something, how you make everything works together, right? So when I started working with Ielts, and I don't even know if John and them is still on here, but I do want to thank them and also Michael for allowing me to move the way I move. And a lot of times I mesh a lot of this together because I get a lot of understanding from them also, and mentorship also with what I'm doing with C. So with Ielts, I bought the first off-Broadway play to the War Memorial Building about 12 years ago. And it was Black Angels over Tuskegee. How I got cool with the cast was for 3 years in a row, I would take students for Ielts, Black History Month, up New York to the play. And so we would go so much, the cast kind of knew us because, they would come out and they would take pictures with them. You had the young man that he played on the guy, Lamar Rucker, and he do things with on Medea and Tyler Perry. He really works with them, right? Why did I get married? He was the sheriff. So he would come out and he would take pictures when they knew it. And then one day I said, you know what, how about we do a bus trip? And we go. Now from the resources from Ielts for going every year with the kids for Black History Month, then I did a fundraiser for Seed that we took 2 bus loads and we packed the whole theater out. So it was almost like a private showing for Trenton. And then we went to dinner before we got to the play. We had to organize all of those things. And I was younger then, man. I was excited about doing it. We're going to go out to eat first. Then we're going to eat. We're going to go up to New York. And when I took them up there, the cast was like, I can't believe you have all of these people here. So guess what we did, Gerald? To take it a step further, Tony Mack was the mayor at the time. And I said, somebody gave me this idea, and I don't think I just came up with it, but they said, let's do a proclamation to them for the services and the things that they do. And the city, the mayor's secretary, I forgot her name at the time, she wrote me up a beautiful one. So I got the kids, they dressed up, everybody looked nice. We went on there and they allowed us to go and read the proclamation to them after the play was over. And man, you couldn't tell us nothing, man. And we took pictures. And then from there, we ended up bringing them to the War Memorial Building and then doing a free private show at Trenton Central High School. And I had partnered with Sharon Grady. And at that time, it was Penny Britt. She was the vice principal. And so together I said, listen, we can't show it to the whole school, but we want you guys to be able to pick the top athletes, because Troy Vincent had helped us bring it to Trenton, right? And then I said, but at the same time, I want you to get some kids that are struggling, but they're just on the fence. So I don't just want it to be for them. I want them to know that we believe in them. So it was half and half in there, and they got to meet the cast afterwards, and we had dinner with them. And then later on that night, we did the show at the War Memorial Building with over 1,200 people there. So these are some of the things that the Seed Male Mentoring Program initiated. And then from there came Heal the City, because we titled the play like Heal the City, on the flyer. And then from there, that's when we started doing positive billboards, when I connected with my dear friend Ivy Avery. And we just started doing the positive billboards. And so out of Seed came Heal the City Trenton.
That
was one of the initiatives.
I mean, many of several, right?
Right, yes.
So you talked about passionately about the impact in the interaction with students and families. What's, in your experience, what's been the major impact, right, in the city on our youth from the various activities, community service activities that Seeds has done, and Heal the City, a part, of course, a branch of Seed Male Mentoring. What has been the most impact on kids?
I think, one of the things, some of the mentors, shout out to Solomon Dinkins, and also my pastor, my bishop, my mentor, E. Earl Jenkins. I think spiritually, it's just a passion that we have, that when we talk to the parents about their children. They believe in us, right? And so when you get that buy-in from the parent, now we can be truthful. And I'll tell them in a minute, like sometimes like we overindulge our kids. Some kids come from good homes, but they're just spoiled. And so what we do is put them in a place that, listen, they have to learn to follow directions, to be humble. And I'll tell them, I said, nobody like grown, fast, smart aleck kids. They just don't. You might think it's cute. So it takes time to have this relationship, but Gerald at her, but it's real. I'm like, you may think it's cute, but people on the outside looking like, I don't like how he talks to his mother. I don't like how he talks to the father. And so we may have sessions on that with the kids, like, man, you might think this stuff is cool, but if somebody want to do something for you and you're treating your parents wrong, that's doing the best that they can, that I'm watching, bringing you places and do all of that, it's going to be hard to get people to do things for you in your whole life. It's just going to be a struggle. Could you still be successful? Possibly, but it's going to be a struggle. And so in the exposure, so that's why, Drew, we used to do the college tour to Atlanta, and people say, well, you could go different places. I said, I know, but the way we have it set up in Atlanta for Morehouse, I've watched how, and it's always just young men. So I don't mix them up, because I know sometimes when I do trips, when I mix the guys up with the girls, the things as a mentor you can say to a young man, you can't say that around some girls, right? Joe, so I might say, man, sit down on the bus while I was driving, man, sit down. You get what I'm saying? And if it's a girl he like, I'll notice as I'm walking away, Joe, he's saying something back. I don't know who he talking to. It is surprising, because I'm like, oh, what? But it's just the girls. So when I get the guys, it's just us. And when we go, it's just learning the airport, right? We fly there. First of all, Joe, I don't have the patience to be on no bus going all the way down, right? So when we fly, the young men dress up. I tell them, and so they believe a lot of the stuff we say, Joe, because I tell them, I say, now watch when you dress up and you look nice and you carry yourself a certain way, watch how people treat you. That stuff, that's instant stuff I know that's going to happen. When we do that, and we bring in kids from the inner city, and they just come in and some never dressed up before. And so when they dress up and we go, they start seeing a pilot will come from the cockpit and come talk to them and take a picture. They see when we walk through the thing and go check our luggage in, how they act. We tell the parents, give them $5, $6 in ones and tips so they can tip the guy that's checking their bags. Because I want, a lot of times it's older Black retired men, and I want them to know that these boys don't think they all that. They respect you too. So when the guys start checking their bags, and these young men are looking sharp and acting like, they give them the money. And then when we get to the airport, it's a shock value, Gerald. You know what I tell them? I say, okay, once we get our ticket, we check in. I say, go find the flight. Take us to the gate. And so it's just a time where they got to learn. You got to read. You got to figure it out. You got to work together as a team. And then we just get to the gate. We go. We have a good time. We do the college tour. And we only tour, Gerald, like maybe 2 or 3 schools. The reason we do that, we don't want to overload them, because after a while, when you go to a lot of them, then you start wondering why they're cutting up. It's just that they're kind of getting tired of them. All tours, you don't get a good tour guide. You get what I'm saying? So we just do Morehouse, Clark, Atlanta, and then sometimes we'll get Georgia Tech, and we'll go over there. So they'll see the difference between the small HBCU campuses versus like Georgia Tech, who has its own little town, across the thing, but it's right there in Atlanta, so they learn the difference in that.
What happened to Morris Brown? Was it too far away for you guys?
Nah, listen, the first time we went to Morris Brown. I'll never forget, that was my first tour to Atlanta. We went to Morris Brown, and the kids said that was the best one they had.
Well, in the ACU, that's it, yep. ACU, Atlanta University.
Listen, man, they said the way the gentleman was talking to them, and they knew it. And then they started seeing like how they use their campus for a lot of television movies and shows, Stomp the Yard and all of that stuff. So a lot of things you see back then, it was shot on that campus. So that was like, the kids like, oh man, I remember that bridge. But it's all cool, man. The whole experience. One year we went, they had the probate down there, and the kids, we almost overslept, Gerald. And I said, let's go, because we'll never forget this. Trust me. I don't know what, I've never been to one down here, but trust me. And when they went, it just blew their mind, because to see Black people uplifting each other. So the one thing, when you go to these college tours down there, they want you to succeed, right? And so they're saying things to you. Like, yeah, young brother, you can do it. You can do it. Or I could just be walking, Gerald. You know how it go down there. I can stop anybody. And they'll just stop and talk to our young men with empathy and letting them know, like, and we demand the best out of you, man. So it's so great. And then with Solomon Dinkins, we add in every morning exercise, workout, proper eating. We'll do one day where we just juicing for the whole afternoon. So, man, you know, when we're down there, it's so much the experience. And then we always get someone to go out to dinner with us one night. So we dress up, we go to dinner, and we get a special speaker. And the last day, we'll go to Stone Mountain. And so we climb Stone Mountain together. And so when we get to the top of Stone Mountain, at that time, they done sucked up so much information and love amongst one another. You'd be surprised at the stuff that comes out of their mouth, along with tears and hug. And then my job as a facilitator, Gerald, I say, now, how will all you talked about, we're going to take it back home to the city? How you going to take it back to your school, your classroom? Like, all that sounds good, but I want y'all, while you're on the plane, because usually we going to the airport after that, think about how you're going to execute this.
That's having a major impact on the kids' life skills, right? You teach them life skills, teach them etiquette, manners, all the things
all of that
are required, the values that they should have and how to carry themselves.
Yep.
Denise?
Wow. So this sounds like such an amazing program. And I can't wait till you create a sister program so that women can go on some of these tours, right? I have to encourage you and keep putting fire in your belly. You have to do a girls mentoring program that coincides with the male program. I'm just going to always advocate because I'm a woman.
You should, because I'm going to tell you something. Working with the young ladies, it's just so, I love it. You know what I mean? So I do work with United Front, you know, the youth group that come in. They really look to me like an uncle. They listen. They never really seen like healthy relationships, you know what I mean? Or, you know, just men or people in the community. This is why, like, Gerald, we go to places like the Big Easy restaurant to eat. We go to Isla Mays, because when they go in there, these business owners really are happy to see them, and they come out and they talk to them and they laugh and they have a great relationship. And people don't know those little things makes a difference. It's not like going to the corner stores around the window and say, hurry up and buy, and you know, you don't have enough, and talking to them that way. They're really seeing Black business owners who care about them. And that makes a difference in itself.
For sure.
Mr. Ortiz, Mr. Ortiz. You're muted, Mr. Ortiz.
So actually, I feel your passion, Stacy, and I love it. It reminds me when I was a guidance coordinator in Chicago many years ago, and we developed a program with the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana so we could get our inner city kids to go to this Ivy League place and actually see what it looked like. And I have an idea for you that maybe we could work on, and that is when these students go to the campus, it would be nice if we could identify former students from Trenton that are there that we can maybe pair the students with, and maybe they can go to class. One of the things that we did, we were able to get the students to actually, we found the students who were from Chicago, we paired them, and then they actually went to class, went to see what a class looks like, and they stayed through the entire class. I think that's something that gives them an idea, right? Of what do they talk about in philosophy, or what do they talk about in these classes? So something to think about.
That is
we
something
do that,
to think about.
That's all, just an idea.
Let me say this, y'all. Mr. Ortiz, you don't remember when we bought the play to Trenton High? You were key to that in the beginning.
I didn't want to say anything, but yes.
Yeah, but that was an exciting time because it was new and we were brainstorming and you had just came on. It was just great, man.
Well, your program is great, and I just, we need to, how do people get involved though? Because we need to get you back into the schools so that at the high school, more students get involved in the program. Meet with the guidance counselors. We need to get you on their on one of their monthly meetings so that you can talk to them. We need more, right? And so I think we need to make sure that, I know you work real closely with the guidance counselors and all that. But we still need to perhaps start even at the middle schools, because now we're trying to bring the career development all the way to the middle schools. So these younger kids start seeing things earlier, not to wait till the last, sometimes we wait too late. We wait till the high school experience and there's juniors or seniors and they've already screwed up or they're limited in choices because they didn't follow certain protocols. So there's a lot of work to do. And I think you've blessed us with all your passion. I mean, we feel it, and thank God for that we have people out there like you that really support the young people, and it's from the heart. That it's real. It's genuine.
Right.
And so thanks, Stacy. Thank you very much.
Well,
And Stacy, in terms of the CML mentoring, how does the MLK drum major for service 12 years now?
Yeah.
How does that initiative flow into and incorporate into CML mentoring program?
That was our first major initiative. And what it was, when we first started the program, we would go to nursing homes and we would recite things from Dr. Martin Luther King. And then we would feed the seniors. We would make it a whole day. So that's what we would do on that Monday. And then one day, Annette Lateague had blessed us with some money. I never forget, it was my first time. We had just got our 501c. It was our first time. Somebody just gave us a contribution to check. I was like, oh, man, let's see what we can do with this. So I went to Mountain View Country Club and I did some numbers and I said, we want to do an MLK breakfast there. We want to invite the parents. And we had like over 100 people there. And it started off like that and the kids reciting. Our first drum major award went to On the Real Radio, and that was Landy, Darren Freedom Green, and Ron Davis. And they got to speak. And that's how we kind of came with that format. And we started seeing, like, we saw in that time, like, wow, this was great. So then the second time we did it, each time we would step it up a little more. We went to Cedar Gardens, took some of the proceeds from that, and we honored Poppy Sanderson. And that really took me to another level, because when I started interviewing, talking to Poppy, from all the things he was doing, Drew, from all the years, we don't know. First of all, I'm like, what youth fountain you're drinking from? So Poppy was great. And a lot of the kids doing that did sports, and they were able to. So that just turned into that, man. And then we started having really like dynamic speakers. And that's our thing, man. So every time when we do our MLK breakfast, the young men would do a presentation, they would do something, but we always brought a speaker that was going to speak to the people. And as you can see, this coming Saturday, so far, God bless, we have Raz Baraka, that's going to come down, and how his speaking is, and he's going to speak to the situation. When you look at the title of it, the right time is right now. And that's all I did. I just gave him, listen, this is what you're going to be on and be talking about. But this year, I'm going to be honest, man, I am so happy about my drum majors. And I always told you, Drew, and I don't know if I told you in private, like you really have a passion for the community and the people. I watch you get off work, or you might get off from the train station and then you go, but you're at events and you're seeing what's going on. That's how I am. So when people say, you'll be a little bit of everywhere, yeah, because I need to see the heartbeat. What's the trends? What's really happening now? Because if you're not in on the ground to see the way people are really thinking and where our peoples are, it's tough to help them. You'll keep doing things in the regular, traditional way. But we got to do them. When you ask me a question, and this is one of the things I do love about Ielts, exposure. Taking them places. We catch the train to New York. We go to Philadelphia. We go to a Sixers game and learn the career path of a Sixers game before the game even starts, and meet with people that work there. So just giving them that exposure and letting them know, like, life is more than what it is that you see. And those are the best teaching moments. They're teachable moments. So you can just start teaching live right there on the spot, man. So it's great. And then so now they're not as nervous when it's time for them to step out and do something else, because you've given them some tools. Like tomorrow, we're having our public speaking contest that I see you. I think, and a lot of that through my friend Ivy. Young people, we need to know how to speak, get ready to present ourselves. Nobody wants to go in front of everybody and speak, but if you have to, and if you have an idea, you got to be able to express your ideas.
That's it. Thank you so much, Stacy. I appreciate you taking your time to to be on the
I see.
broadcast this evening. You have to have you come back and have some students from the
Yeah.
city of Trenton come back and share their
Mhm.
experiences that they've had
Yeah.
with Seed Male Mentoring Program.
Yeah.
And also some of the drum majors for service come and share their contribution to the community as well. I think that'd be a great program that we can look forward to have you back on and to continue this conversation. So we want to thank
Denise
Stacey
and I
Harris.
are working on some things, and so as I get that up and jumping, that's going to be great. Shout out to Denise, because even I just want to say this before I hang up. The more I do, and this is honestly, Denise, the more I talk to you, like you just have wisdom and you're cool and you're down to earth. Like I just love kind of talking to her, and we need those type of people in the school district, man. I'm telling you, it's very important. There's certain things I can see, and we need that type of people, dealing with our young people and the parents.
Thank you.
Final comments from Denise and then Mr. Wilfredo Ortiz.
Stacey, I share your passion. I love serving this community. I love helping people. It's always been in my spirit, my energy, and it's just my calling. So I appreciate that we're doing all of this work together, and everything that I will always do now until the end of my career will always be for parents and students. So thank you for sharing your services, and please share the referral forms for the Seed Mentoring Program so that we can share that with our school counselors.
Just a lot of love, man.
Yep.
You're great. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to Trenton Talks on WIMG 1300 AM and WPHY Verizon Channel 28. Everyone have a great night. We'll see you next week at 4 p.m. God bless you.
Thank you.